Hello, this is Brian. Today is Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. And I'm here in 47th Street Canyon in San Diego, or a few miles east of Balboa Park. And I want to do a spotlight on shrubs video. Today, I want to finally give a shout out to the southern honeysuckle, and it's this clambering, beautiful, tangled mess of awesomeness right here. This is Lonicera, subspicata, variety denudata. So what we have here is a generally evergreen, woody-based vine to shrub. More of a shrub than a vine, but sometimes can be somewhat vine-like. And it is a member of the honeysuckle family, the Caprifoliaceae. So what we have here is a plant with some really crazy unkempt growth habits that make it a standout among native plants here. And since this is a spotlight video, I am talking about a native plant. We do have some species of native honeysuckles here in Southern California, and this is one of them. So Lonicera denudata, or Lonicera subspicata variety denudata, is a very gently fuzzy. Look carefully, you can kind of see the hairs. So denudata, denuded in Latin, kind of refers to the very faintly hairy as opposed to fully blown hairy appearance of some other honeysuckle plants. So this one is very gently fuzzy, and it's got these beautiful, really cool, rich green, oval-shaped leaves that are oppositely arranged here on the stems. You can see this is oppositely arranged. That's oppositely arranged. They're shiny dark green on top and lighter green underneath, with a very, very barely noticeable pubescence or fuzziness. So look carefully. These leaves, you can see the hairs on them. And then they have these really cool red twigs. The twigs and the newest growth tends to be a really rich purplish red, which is very attractive. And its growth habit, again, kind of walks the line between shrub and vine. And there are a lot of plants that do that have very wiry growth habits that enable them to climb up and clamber over other shrubs and smaller trees. So again, this walks the line between shrub and vine. So what we have here is we have it sprawling over this coastal scrub oak right here, Quercus dumosa. And what happens is a lot of times this plant, if it's not growing next to a larger shrub, it will often sprawl on the ground and be low growing. But once it has a support shrub, it will climb up and clamber over it, as you can see here. So here we're looking at the scrub oak, and here we're looking at the honeysuckle plant. So I'm going to go take a picture or two of the plant and its leaves and its habit, and we'll move on to some more interesting aspects of this really cool native honeysuckle. All right. So we kind of got a quick look at the crazy habit of this plant and how it grows very wiry and sprawls over whatever it can climb over. Scrub oaks, small tree branches, other shrubs. All right, so I think it's time to talk about some of the other features of this awesome little plant. Awesome, beautiful shrub. So, people who are familiar with honeysuckles as a garden plant are well versed to how attractive the flowers can be, and on some varieties quite large. Now, we do have a pretty cool looking flower on ours as well. It's not nearly as large as our humongous horticultural varieties that you find planted in people's yards and occasionally do escape into the wild. So what we have here is your very typical shaped honeysuckle flower. But ours are kind of small. They're kind of white with some pinkish on some of the older flowers. When the flowers start aging, they start getting a little bit of a pinkish hue to them. And they are delightfully fragrant. If you are careful not to get too close to where the bees are going, they do have a bit of a fragrance. I know I smelled them earlier. They do have kind of a nice little fragrance to them. Kind of a little bit like a rose, a little bit. Kind of like a rosy type aroma, which is really nice and pleasant. But sometimes you have to get close to the flower to sniff it. So like I said, you got to watch out for pollinating bees and insects so they don't get stung. But they do have a nice little fragrance. And they flower, we're right now in mid-June, so late spring into early summer. And sometimes when these plants are in full bloom, you get this nice, pleasant, whitish hue. So pretty attractive flower that will grade into a berry-like fruit. And we do have some developing fruits right here that are clustered here on the end of this twig. Obviously, they're not ripe yet, but they will go through green as these have just been pollinated and just started developing, and eventually get a little bit larger. But these are pretty small too. The fruits are pretty small on our native honeysuckles, at least this species here, and eventually will ripen through red and purplish colored when they're ripe. As you can see, again, we're talking about the clambering growth habit. It starts out as a woody-based shrub and then climbs up as a vine through larger shrubs if you can get a purchase on the branches of a larger shrub. So it can be a locally common plant, and it does have an interesting variety of habitats per se. Ranges from coastal canyons to mountain foothills, mostly in wooded areas and areas of thick chaparral and brush. So a lot of times in the understory of oak woodlands and forests, where there are a lot of understory shrubs, not always, but also in thick tangles of chaparral and larger, woodier coastal sage shrubs. So it tends to feel more at home in more of a wooded area. So it does like these canyon bottoms, and canyon bottoms are a very common place to find this plant. So let's go ahead and just get a couple pictures of the flowers and developing fruits, and we'll move on to some more cool things about this beautiful plant. As I mentioned before, it tends to be more at home on canyon bottoms in wooded and very thick areas of chaparral. So it tends to like, again, areas that have a little bit more access to moisture, though it is definitely used to our summer dry, winter wet climate, but it definitely prefers the more slightly moisture laden areas where it can get a good purchase. And so let's go look at some other aspects. So now, like I said, the upper stems tend to form more of a vine, but down here you can see where we start getting into some brown bark of some woodier stems, which tends to turn a little bit more of a lighter grayish color as we move down. As you can see, all these stems here, these are all from this plant. Those are all from the the honeysuckle plant. So it's quite a neat plant. And we do have several specimens of it here in this canyon. We have some growing here by this scrub oak as well. So this plant is a real treat to come across when you're hiking any time of the year. But when you catch it in bloom, and then later on when you get the reddish and purplish colored fruits, it's really a cool treat. But I wanted to make sure to get this spotlight video done when the plant is blooming, because for most people, the most conspicuous and most attractive aspect of a honeysuckle plant is its flowers. And the flowers are typically why honeysuckle plants are grown. So there you have it. Lonicera subspicata variety denudata. Like I said, these flowers are pretty small, so you kind of have to get close to them to really see the details. So I'm going to go ahead and take another closer look here. As you can see the stamens, the yellow pieces that are coming up there. That's where the pollen is. And then you get one big lobe on top and a smaller lobe on the bottom of the corolla. So that's why I wanted to take a little extra time just to look at the other details of the flower of this plant, because what happens is here, most of the flowers, they're really small and they're very well curled back. You can see the top half of the flower, the corolla, is curled backwards, as you can see there. And again, they start off whitish and they age to pinkish. A lot of honeysuckle plants, the flowers will start out more of a whitish color, and then they will change color as they age before they fall off and start developing the fruit. And our native species here is no different. Again, starting off white and grading to pink with later maturity, and eventually falling off and turning into the fruit. So there you have it. Check out the screen for the more comprehensive range of this plant, but it is quite widespread here, especially here in the lower elevations. But look on the screen for a little bit more of a comprehensive range of this plant. But if you're in these low elevation canyons like in San Diego, Orange County, some of the inland foothills, you have to look out for this plant. It's really a really charming plant to come across when you're hiking and you're seeing the beautiful flowers and the really cool little berry-like fruits and a really cool sprawling vining habit that this plant has. So there you have it. Lonicera subspicata variety denudata, the southern honeysuckle. Thanks for watching my spotlight video, and I hope to see myself belting out some more of these. Thanks for watching.